I called Coach Harbaugh with the Ravens and I said, Coach,
Yeah.
hey man, I think I'm going to retire. And he's like, Russell, what the hell are you doing? Training camp starts, season starts in a few weeks. Training camp starts in a couple of days. And I said, Coach, man, I think I got something good. He was like, well, what are you going to do? I'm about to drive a porta-potty truck around.
You're listening to the Venture Best Spotlight, a podcast by Venture Best, the venture capital and emerging companies practice group here at Michael Best and Friedrich. On this show, you'll hear from some of our amazing founder clients and network of venture capital managers. These individuals are inspiring instrumental changes to the way the venture economy produces, invests, does business, and defines what it means to be a startup.
Hello, listeners. How are y'all doing? My name is Jordan LaFaro. I am an associate on the Venture Best team here at Michael Best. I'm based out of the Austin, Texas office, and I'm an attorney who works in all things venture, startups. My clients are technology company founders, investors who invest in emerging technology companies big and small that are all sort of growing and oftentimes bringing on investors. And so that's sort of my general purview. And in the 10 years or so that I've been practicing law, I've gotten to know Russell Shepard here, who's joining me. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit today about Russell's journey as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a fundraiser, and get to know a little bit about him and see if we can learn some interesting nuggets from his journey and see what we can take away from it. So without further ado, Russell, man, it's great to see you again. You and I are both... Yeah, of course. We're both living in Texas right now, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm in Houston, Texas, brother. When I met you it's been about 5 years ago, you were introduced by a close friend at an old firm. And, been out here. I retired from a professional from my NFL journey in 2020 at the height of COVID. And, me and my wife and the family, we've been settled here now. Over the last about 9 or 10 years, and been actively home since 2020.
Yeah, I kind of buried the lead there. It's obviously I don't have a lot of professional athletes turned entrepreneurs, right? But you had a 6-7 year career in the NFL, which is pretty awesome. And I remember when I first met you, I was a little starstruck because you played for my favorite team, the New York Football Giants. Let's talk a little bit about that, about your playing career, if that's cool. I guess, one question I have for you is, you retired a few years ago, but you were in the league for a good long while. You played on a few different teams. When you were in the thick of it, did you know what you were going to do after your playing career had ended? How did that go for you?
Well, not necessarily. I knew once I was getting towards the end of my career, I was getting a little burnt out. Every professional athlete, when they get to the point where they don't want to work out, when they get to the point where they just distracted, they lose the drive, somewhat the passion. You start to think about what's next. And for me, I didn't quite know exactly what it was going to be, but I knew I was looking to kind of make a transition out of pro ball. I was, close in on a decade, about 2 years away from approaching a decade. And, I'm just looking to do something different. I did enjoy my Giants stay, go blue. I'm playing for the best, franchise in all of professional sports. But at the end of the day, man, I knew that it had to be more for me, post football.
Do you think that most of your colleagues in the league, do you think they're having that same sort of mindset of okay, this is a young man's game? I'm in my, I'm a geriatric now at age 30, right? So what do I do when this is over?
Well, no, definitely. Every athlete goes through it, big and small. We all think about what's next. Like you said, when you get to 30, you're in the dinosaur ages in terms of professional sports. So, for me, I had somewhat of an early journey in, entrepreneurship. I got involved in some early investments in some companies. I had a trucking company with my mom and dad, who were my partners, and I just kind of dipped my toe in it here and there. Originally was looking to start a sports and marketing firm. The NFL. I went on this journey selling to the NFL. Hey, we need to get more former athletes involved in marketing and representing players for their contracts, and the NFL loved it. So what happened with me? I went on a 2-year journey where I internship with the NFL union, players union. I fell with the NFL. I interned with the NFL front office, and I got down to the last part of it, and I went to the NFL Combine, and I was in a room with 300 plus agents, and quickly I realized I didn't want to be an agent. And I told my wife, I think I want to try something else different. I think I got this crazy idea, and she's like, "What you want to do?" I was like, I want to deal with trash, with waste. So like I told you, towards the end of the year in 2019, right before COVID, I was thinking I wanted to do trash. I was, me and my wife were going to one of our favorite restaurants in Manhattan. This was towards the end of the season. And, I kind of got inspired by a sea of trash. It was the night before trash, and trash was everywhere on the streets. I told you I had prior experience in logistics hauling. My family has a dump truck, based company, and we've had it for 20 plus years. So again, I knew I wanted to get somewhat into the hauling business, and I thought my first entry was going to be, trash. And what happened to me, man, I got really pushed into the portable restrooms. It was a founder, CEO of a company called Zeters, which is a national waste broker. And Zeters is one of the biggest national waste brokers. And the CEO, John Farley, he told me, Russell, I think you should look at porta potties. People are using the bathroom every day.
Evergreen business. I'm just fascinated by the fact that you met some incredible people. You've had a successful playing career. There was some compensation that went along with that, right? And so you look at a lot of players and you sort of read their stories that when their career's done, they may or may not be wanting to partner up with investors or whoever it might be, and starting companies with big dreams, oftentimes looking at something like a little sexy in terms of like high technology companies, AI backed this, whatever restaurant chain and club, something like that in Vegas, who knows what it might be. And those are kind of risky endeavors. And I just love that you stuck to your instincts, you stuck to what you know, and you started a venture backed company in, like you're talking about it, like porta potties and waste removal, right? Like you're in New York City and you're not inspired by the lights or the glam or Broadway, but you're looking at the river of garbage and you're like, that's my motivation and that's my inspiration for a new business. I think that's super like humble of you. I think that's super confident of you. I think that's, how easy it is to throw money at something that's a little bit more high technology and then you just see it disappear, right? Like the business never gets off the ground. And you instead said, hey, I'm going to revenue generation and getting it started.
Appreciate, the thing with me is I got to give them, the environment, just the economy gives you hints on kind of where to look, what's really strong, what's resilient, and the beautiful thing for us is that when COVID hit, I was supposed to sign with the Baltimore Ravens in 2020, and right before, it was 2 days before training camp. The company was a few months old at that point. And I honestly thought the football season was going to fold. I didn't think it was going to be any way we can be in the same locker room, tackling.
Because of COVID.
Exactly. It's a contact sport. So I didn't think, how can we possibly do this for a 16-game week season? So I decided to start the company in the middle of, training camp. I just, the company grew. Within the first 2 months, the company was covering its early cost in operations. I think we were at like about $10,000 in operating costs within the first month or two. And quickly, we were putting out porta potties, hand wash stations. At that point in time, football season is really not going. We don't know if it's going to go. I was kind of at that point in time, I was, curious. I was trying to just make some extra money before the season starts. So in the midst of the company growing, covering its cost, I got the courage after, making about $8,000, $9,000 in the month of August. I called Coach Harbaugh with the Ravens and I said, Coach, hey man, I think I'm going to retire. And he's like, Russell, what the hell are you doing? Training camp starts, season starts in a few weeks. Training camp starts in a couple of days. And I said, Coach, man, I think I got something good. He's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm about to drive a porta potty truck around. And you can hear the pin drop from 1,000 miles away. I think he thought I was losing it. CE hit me bad. Who knows? Yeah. So, man, I knew once I said no to a professional football team, the word to get around. And I knew I was kind of going to close the door on a big chapter. So, the thing is, I say all this to say is that, at that point in time, I had a minimum guaranteed salary of about $1.5 million. And I was turning that salary down for an $8,000 gross revenue month in the middle of COVID. But the one thing I seen, Jordan, is that, brother, a lot of people weren't making any money at all. And my company was almost doubling in size month over month at the height of COVID. So I seen it early. I just kept my eyes open. I took the humble approach. And I've seen that, if this company continues to grow at this rate over a long period of time, I'll be able to make my career earnings,
Yeah.
times 10. So, because again, people they're using the bathroom every day.
Well, yeah. I mean, and you've been cash flowing from the beginning, which is more than most technology companies can say, and you're now profitable for sure. And that's bringing money in the door, but you own all this equity too, right? Like independent of your your returns on a cash flow basis, you're building a valuable company and you have the lion's share of it, which is pretty amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, I said you have the lion's share, not all of it, because I know that you have brought on a few investors, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that, because you've got a pretty exciting roster of investors who are supporting Shep Boys and who are benefiting from it, obviously, from an equity standpoint, from a distributions standpoint. And so I'm not trying to put all your business out there on the internet for everyone to see, but to the extent you're comfortable, would you tell us a little bit about your process as a fundraiser?
As an entrepreneur, you have to lean on your community, and your community is one facet is your family and friends. So that's what we did. We found something that our family and friends, we put our last name on it. We found a service that was really simple, where anybody can do it. It just takes a want. And we were able to take advantage of that part of our community, which is the family and the friends. The other part is your network. And a lot of people usually get that through your college experience. You can lean on your family as well. And when I say that, is finding people that can invest, can put their hard-earned income into the vision in return, whether it's through distributions, exits of the company, distributions at the end of the year. You can pay people back for their belief through their capital. So with us, man, me being a professional athlete and finding a lot of a lot of athletes they're very cash rich. A lot of entrepreneurs, they tend to not to have a lot of cash because they pour into their company, they hide it through 401ks, other things. We're athletes, we accumulate a lot of wealth early on, so we tend to have a lot of cash that's just sitting. So we found a lot of cool guys, man, guys that had great names, people like Mike Evans. He has a large position in the company, and outside of being a limited partner, a strategic branding partner, he has the ability where he can bridge loan us from time to time if we forecast wrong. If we have a big opportunity that comes up with a disaster and we need to buy a bunch of equipment, Mike gives us the ability to bridge a loan and give favorable interest to him in different ways outside of utilizing his brand. So we have a variety of investors, man, and like I said, we look forward to this shared journey because they're kind of using the bathroom all over the world, and we're kind of having fun with it right now.
That's awesome. Fundraising is got to be one of the most challenging parts, nerve-wracking parts of being a founder. What would you percentage of the folks that you reached out to and said, hey, if you're looking for an investment opportunity, why don't you take a look at my company? What would you say is your hit rate, right? Like folks who decide to follow through on it versus.
Out of 10, I would probably say we're probably close to about 40, 50%. I would be honest with you. We could be trending a little higher. When you're raising capital is done by storytelling. Man, you have this conversation all the time behind closed doors. You have your, and again, everybody can tell a story. Some of us tell, stories better in person. We're very in person. We're extroverts, and we can give this, that's the best way that we can tell it, and we can paint the picture and create this like-minded story where an investor or a person can see. Some of us are created. We're from afar through decks, through branding, through financials. You have to figure out your way where you can tell your story and it can place towards your strengths, your personalities, your traits, and then you can then be able to go out and tell that story and can share it. You got to make somebody fall in love with the product and you as the person. And everybody doesn't have the privilege to get to know you. And that's why, unfortunately, I have the advantage over a lot of capital raisers is that I went to war with a lot of these guys. I played Little League football with them. We cried together. For good and bad. But when you're raising $100+ million and you don't have the privilege of knowing all of your capital, your potential capital prospects, you got to be able to figure out what's your best way to tell that story. So we've been fortunate, man.
I think that's so true. The world really does spin on stories and on narrative, and at the core of every successful business, that's really what's under there, and that's what's compelling. That's what gets folks to buy in. That's why we all love our favorite companies, right? Whether they're publicly traded companies that we want to own a little piece of in the stock market, or whether they're mom and pop in the neighborhood, right? It is because of that narrative and buying into that. And really, and it starts at the top. It starts with the person who envisioned the idea and moved it forward, and you live it, right? Like I can see it in you, and it's who you are, right? Like Shep Boys is Russell Shepard, right? It's above and beyond. So I think that's great. I think another question I had was what this is back to the kind of business you're in, right? You're in a cash flowing business. You're now doing many millions of dollars a year in revenue. What do you think about the fact that, like, because of that, and because you don't have a ton of expenses, you're not paying major IT bills, and you're not paying for high-end software developers to build your product, whatever it might be. Instead, you're allowed to put money straight to work. You are able to spin off distributions at the end of the year based on your net profit. That just, as someone whose business is working with entrepreneurs and founders and venture-backed companies, right? That's not typical, I will say. Like, for a company that's 3-4 years old, that's venture-backed, right? Like, folks raise the venture money because they're not generating profit at the end of the year. And you're able to turn that on its head a little bit and say to your investors, hey, help us grow, we'll expand, but I'm still going to be able to, you can count on me to be able to cash flow, make some distributions to you, and you can recoup some of your investment, still hang on to your equity along the way. I just think that's super special. And it's one of the, maybe sort of like the lesser known benefits of running a cash flowing business that might not be high technology, but it is something that, it attracts high net worth individuals precisely because of that. So I think that's a big deal. Do you think that's one of the reasons why? Another thing, 4 out of 10 is very high, just so you know. A lot of folks are sending out investor decks to fundraisers, and they're getting 1 out of 100 and they feel good about it if a VC investor is able to turn around an angel investor. And so you have a high success rate. Do you think have your investors said to you, like, I love the fact that at the end of the year or at the end of year 2, I can feel pretty good about getting the distribution back into my pocket?
When I was structuring the deal and just thinking, how can I play into my the passive income, but still go and create a cash flowing business where I can go buy more real estate. I was like, this is how I'm going to structure my deals. And that's when I reached out to you and I was like, Jordan, man, I want to be able, we cash flow and we make a 20% margin off of the traditional. So there's 4 verticals to what we do. There's construction. Construction is 75% of our revenue. It's very fractionated. It's every day in terms of it's in any market we want to go in. In a place like where we're at in Houston, it's a lot. It's a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of construction. But construction is one of our first verticals. Our second vertical is, festivals and events. Festivals and events produce some of our highest margins. They're one-day events. You kind of drop the equipment. It's there for a day or two. You pick it up. Again, those allow us to get great margins. But again, that's not a cash flowing method. So it's never going to be the main part of what we do. But again, we love festivals and special events. The third is industrial facilities. So us being in a niche area like the Gulf, we have a lot of refineries, chemical manufacturers, and a lot of these facilities, they utilize our rentals to make their facilities run properly. They don't have plumbing because they got a bunch of pipes and they can't afford for a Pierce pipe to happen on a Exxon Mobil plant. They get 200 porta potties and service them every day. So those are a big part of our revenue stream. We love industrial facilities, but again, that's one of our verticals. The 4th vertical are disasters. Yes. Off of the 3 verticals we do, the first being construction, special events, industrial facilities, we're able to create a 20 to 30% bottom line. But again, from those storms, we're able to really kind of allow, we overflow with cash for a startup, and then we're able to distribute distributions to our investors some of our investors who've been with the company for now, it's been barely 2 years. They've already started to receive upwards of, 10% of their initial investment back, which is unique, as you can say, for a startup who hasn't even exited. We're just paying off cash flow, cash on.
I love that. And you talk about storms. One of my favorite things to talk about in the venture capital ecosystem, in the startup ecosystem that I sort of live and work and breathe in is how geography, at least within the US, right? And certainly globally, but how geography impacts innovation, right? Different cities and their venture communities are known for different industries. let alone the fact that not every state, not every city even has a VC ecosystem or a startup ecosystem to speak of. But those that do, I went to law school in Boston, spent 10 years there, and you can't work in the space without crossing biotech and without crossing pharmaceutical companies, just because that's where that industry is headquartered from an entrepreneurial perspective. And so, you're talking about storms. Shep Boys, of course, got its start in Houston. I know you're kind of branching out slowly but surely, expanding your footprint across the Gulf Coast region, moving into Louisiana and sort of the New Orleans area as well. I know there's other states, other regions that are kind of on your mind. And so the big question for me is, in your business, I wonder, how do you see, you talked a little bit about this, how do you see geography and the Gulf Coast region where you are as like central to what you're doing? Could you do Shep Boys in Idaho? Like if you wanted to? Maybe the answer is yes. What do you think?
With us, we have an idea of being a waste management company throughout the Southeast region.
Yes.
We're chasing population, and when the ladies and the guys, the young guys we have who are really are analytical and our data chasers, as we call them, when they're forecasting population over the next 30, 40, 50 years, they're seeing a great migration to the Southeast region. People are chasing affordability. People are chasing just a better way of living. Every 100 years you have a shift of population throughout this young country we have. At one point, we were in the Midwest, the Northeast, it's just shifted to the West. And we're just seeing a lot of people for unique reasons, whether, like you said, it's environmental. People, they need better insurance. The house can't get insured in California. You got tech companies leaving Cali for financial reasons, coming to Austin,
coming to Texas. That's right.
100%. Going to Florida, tax reasons. And just from what we're seeing a huge population shifting towards the Southeast. And we really think places like, Mobile, Alabama, places like Memphis, Tennessee, places like the Carolinas, Tampa. We're thinking a lot of these places, man, are going to see historic growth over the next, century. And that's where we're looking to go. So, we are in 2025. We have expanded to South Louisiana. We're servicing really everything throughout that I-10 highway. Next year in 2026, we'll be in that the Dallas area, as well as probably South Alabama and that Mobile. And we'll probably go no further than the Carolinas throughout 2030. And we'll probably go no further southeast in Tampa, Fort Myers. So we have a scaling picture, man. And we really want to be able to touch enough area where we think population is growing. And then we want to touch unique areas that are really located along coastal areas where we can be first responders to natural disasters. Again, we can respond to a tornado, F1 tornado in Omaha, Nebraska. But again, in order to cash flow and build that resiliency, we kind of go after heavily populated areas who have a lot of construction, special events, or niche areas where we can, take advantage of military contracts, industrial facilities. So we have criteria that we look for, and usually the Southeast fits all of our criteria.
No, I don't doubt it. Florida and Texas are the two fastest growing states in the country in terms of population. We all know about the sort of the Silicon Valley exodus that, is relocating here in Texas and Florida. We all know that there's no state income tax in Texas and Florida. So these are great places to do business. And you talk about...
Also, too, Jordan, not to cut you off, Houston has the number one port in the country. The second biggest port is the Port of New Orleans. We do a lot of marine work. They have a lot of industrial facilities. That's a big part of what we chase. We love the ports and what they bring. And then outside of that, just the very dense. We chase multiples as well. And in our industry, the multiples can vary. The lower the multiple you have is usually depending on the inefficiencies your company has, the lack of software is involved, and the lack of contracts. So going after industrial facilities, military contracts, these allow us to sometimes get another multiple or two.
But you're just scaling.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So definitely being able to create not just a strong EBITDA cash flowing business, being able to get some more brownie points for covering a large disaster territory or having contracts within our revenue streams. That's really big for us. Really big for us.
Well, I'm proud to be part of it, man. As a guy who lives in Houston, Texas area, and see founder who's sort of born and bred there and keeping the business there, and and it's very geographically oriented, right? Like Shep Boys. It's not just that your headquarters are here, but you're literally, driving up and down and setting up your equipment and all of that. And so, creating jobs on top of it. So I think that's great. I got one more business question for you. Next 10 years, 10, 15 years, or maybe less, how do you exit, right? Like you started this company, your blood, sweat, and tears. You got family who owns equity. You got investors who own equity. The distributions are nice, but you got to think that, one day, if you're blessed to sell your company, that's the sort of the big payoff for everyone involved. How are you scheming for that? How does that look? What's that timeline like? How do you get there?
Yeah, so right now with us, man, we have, talking to all our investors, and like you say, you always got to have an exit strategy, regardless, you hold on to it for no company lasts forever. So you got to be able to be positioned to exit if you get an opportunity of a lifetime. So with us, this year, man, we hit a strong milestone. At some point this year, we got pretty close to $1 million EBITDA, our bottom line. So, with us, we're chasing, a $4 to $5 million. We want to see how strong we can get with our bottom line after all of our, just our, our cost of operations. We really think that we should be able to hit that $4 to $5 million EBITDA within the next, 4 to 6 years, and then that puts us at about a $30 to $40 million valuation where we can make the decision. We do have goals in terms of exit. The target we want to hit and the return we want to give back to our investors, and we do think we're positioned good enough where if it takes us 10, 15 years to hit those target goals and be able to give that, 4 or 5x return to our investors, we'll be able to pay them as close back to all their principal as we possibly can through distributions and just being able to just do right by the people who believe in us. So with us, we're still young and we're trying to figure it out. But again, like I said, being able to be efficient, key turn, being able to have a cookie cutter concept where we can scale to wherever after we do this, very well in different territories, and being able to, like I said, the bottom line, being able to take all those things from the efficiencies to being in different markets, all those help us create a strong multiple where we can take that multiple and we can take it and we can put it towards the strongest EBITDA we got. And from that's a beautiful marriage. And then we take the value of our assets at the end of the day. Once we get those two things, the third thing is the value of the assets. And we have our valuation, the valuation that we want. So,
yeah, and then one of these larger companies starts looking at you. They start licking their fingers a little bit. They're like, "Look at this cash flowing company doing $40 million valuation, however millions in EBITDA earning." And on top of that, your investors have already received their cash back, right? And so they're sort of sitting pretty, holding the equity. Russell, when that time comes, man, I'm here. When you start getting acquisitions,
my God.
I'm ready to get you. I'm ready for you to get you cashed out and sell your business if you want to. No pressure.
No, we got to get you in the company before we do that. You, my God, man. Look, all jokes aside, you've been a great mentor, a great teacher. Me myself, like you said, I wasn't privileged to go to school for business. I went to school. My dream was to be a professional athlete. Now I had to do school in order to achieve that goal. But I'm a general studies major. I've had to learn my business and get my MBA and all that on the move. I've just been privileged enough to have the resources, the capital on hand, as well as the friends and the network where, we can put I can put my money where my mouth is, and I can kind of cover my own losses, put my cash up, without having you involved in what we do. As a startup, but just a business in general, there's two things a company needs in order to sustain at a high level, and you need a strong CPA and you need a good ass attorney. Excuse my French. So again, man, you are everything you're part of what we've built, and right now, man, we got a lot of special things, not only for our investors, man, people like yourself who take pride into what we're building. I don't know where we'll go with this, J-Dog. I don't know if we'll be in all 50 states. I don't know if we'll just be in the Southeast region, but one thing I do know is that we're building something special. We're creating opportunities, and we're just having a lot of fun doing something that most people just drive by. Now we're having a lot of private equity people coming into our space because the resiliency they've seen our industry have through COVID tariff wars, inflation. I mean, our companies are still growing. So that's the unique thing, and that's what's making adding another multiple too, is because now we have these financial companies, private equity firms getting involved, and they want to be dump money into them, grow them, and flip them, sell them.
Yeah, you do. They do that, don't they? You have read about that PE funds are looking for sort of brick and mortar cash flowing businesses, utility companies, AC companies, waste management companies. So that's awesome. Yeah. I hope that it stays like a hot acquisition market for you. And I'm here for it when it happens, Russ. I got one last question for you as we finish this up. This is a football question. Got to ask it. And almost a decade in the NFL. Favorite memory? Your favorite? Yeah. Tell me.
Favorite memories. Look, so it was my first year with the Giants, 2018. Odell Beckham is like a little brother to me. I had the privilege of playing with Odell for 2 years at LSU.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You know, I've been knowing him since he was about 16, man. We've been recruiting him a while, and we couldn't keep him away from the schools. Obviously, having an opportunity to play with him in the professional, in the NFL was a different journey. It was a different experience. He was now the superstar. 15 million followers on, Instagram, just a larger than life guy. They had this play, man, where we had two Shepards on the New York Giants for 2 years. It was myself, Russell Shepard, and we had Sterling Shepard, who was he's also a fan favorite. Young Shep is what we called him. So they had this whole play with Odell, man. Eli throws the ball to Odell. Odell then takes the ball and he throws it to Sterling Shepard or whatever. So we practiced this play the whole week, and then coach calls the play during the middle. We playing the Chicago Bears. The Bears are actually pretty good that year, and they were in the playoff hunt. Well, Sterling Shepard gets hurt before the play, and I just ran out there. I was like, I'm going, I go, not knowing that coach was going to call the special play. Yeah. So coach calls the special play. And on this special play, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just, he said, Shep, we need a Shepherd. And I went out there. And, man, Eli threw the ball to Odell. And, Odell just, something ends up happening when the play, it gets blown up. It gets messed up. And he just picks his head up and he just looks down the field. And I don't know how I just wandered downfield because I don't know really what I'm doing. I'm about 60 yards downfield. And, man, he just throws the ball as far as he can. And, man, I'm just in the perfect spot. And I catch the football. And we ended up winning that game. Go blue. And it was just one of them things where it was just a part of, you really downplay it because, unfortunately, as I tell this story, we don't have, 60, 70,000 people in the stands and another 100,000 outside. Me catching that football and getting open, us winning that game in New York City, man, it was just it was an experience like no other, man. It was amazing. I had the privilege of playing with Cam Newton, Eli, all that, being a part of that special play in that stadium with a superstar like Odell Beckham. It was one of the highlights, man. I won the game. I couldn't believe it. 100%.
Russell, man, you're an inspiration. You're the favorite founder that I've ever met. And I just love how you're pushing something new and you're sort of subverting expectations, raising money, venture-backed company, being an entrepreneur and doing it without the sort of all the Silicon Valley fluff. So I love that, man. It's great. It was great talking to you. Let's keep it up.
Yes, sir.
Bye, Russ.
And that's a wrap on today's show. Thank you for listening to the Venture Best Spotlight. Don't miss another episode. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube today. And if you really enjoyed today's content, please take a moment to rate and review the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Have a great day.